The phrase launched by Clara, my 12-year-old stepdaughter, with the cruel precision of an arrow hung over the dinner table. We were celebrating my husband Roberto's promotion, an event that should have been joyful, but which now had a bitter taste. His work colleagues, some neighbors, and the inevitable presence of Valeria, Roberto's ex-wife and Clara's mother, the mommy from the quote. Mommy says that if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even notice. Valeria's affected. Little laugh confirmed the source of the venom. Roberto cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Kids, right? Always repeating what they shouldn't. The guests laughed, a hollow sound that didn't dispel the tension. I, Laura, forced a smile, but the phrase embedded itself in me. For 3 years, I had been trying to build a home with Roberto and Clara, but Valeria's shadow was long, and her influence over her daughter, undeniable. I was a history teacher at a high school. I loved my profession, but lately, I felt exhausted. At home, the situation wasn't any better. Roberto, though affectionate in his own way, was passive in the face of Valeria's barbs and Clara's growing hostility. I felt like a displaced piece, an intruder in the family dynamic that the three of them, somehow, still maintained. Clara's phrase became a dark mantra. Nobody would notice. I began to notice the little things. The way Roberto still sought Valeria's opinion for important decisions about Clara, as if my presence were irrelevant. The pitying glances from some neighbors, like Donna Irene, the gossipy lady from upstairs. At work, the school principal, Mrs. Matos, a rigid woman, seemed to always find fault with my classes. One afternoon, while picking Clara up from ballet class, I unintentionally overheard a conversation between Valeria and another mother. Laura tries hard, poor thing, but she doesn't have the same flair, does she? Roberto deserved someone more on his level. That poor thing stung. The last straw was a school project of Clara's, a family memory album. She proudly showed me the final result. There were photos of her with Roberto, her with Valeria, the three of them together. I wasn't on any page. The teacher said to only include the most important people, Aunt Laura. That night, loneliness engulfed me. Nobody would notice. What if I really disappeared for a few days? Some time for myself. The next day, I requested unpaid leave from school. Mrs. Matos granted it, reluctantly. To Roberto, I said I was going to visit a sick aunt in the countryside, an excuse he accepted without much questioning. I rented a cabin in a small mountain town. No TV. Poor cell signal. I brought books, my sketchbook. I tried not to think about them. Meanwhile, in the city, my absence began to create ripples. Roberto, focused on work, took a while to notice my calls had ceased. When the sick aunt week extended, he grew worried. Clara felt the impact. Without me to remind her of schedules, help with homework, her routine fell apart. She complained to her father, to her mother. Aunt Laura always did that. In the building, Donna Irene spread rumors. This reached the ears of Beatriz Roberto's, ambitious colleague who had a crush on him. Beatriz saw an opportunity and began to get closer to Roberto, offering support. Roberto, confused, gave in to the attention. Valeria, noticing Beatriz's moves, felt jealous. Not of Roberto, but of losing her place. She started to take more interest in Clara's routine when she was with him. At school, Tiago, a talented but problematic student with whom I had a connection, began to rebel. He refused to participate in the substitute teacher's classes. His grades dropped. Mrs. Matos, instead of investigating thoroughly, blamed my lack of commitment for having destabilized the student. In my refuge, oblivious to everything, I saw an ad in the local newspaper. Laura, please get in touch. We're worried. Roberto. That hit me. I decided to go back, not for them, but to face reality. My leave from school was ending. I sent a short message to Roberto. I'm fine. I need more time. Take care of Clara. I turned off my old cell phone and bought a new SIM card. I remembered Sophia, an old college friend, who owned a guest house and ceramic studio in a small coastal town. I sent her an email. Sophia replied, offering help and a room. I packed my things and left for the coast. The Posada Cantos do Mar, Sea Corners guest house, was rustic, charming. Sophia welcomed me with open arms. I started working at the guest house, helping with everything. Sophia encouraged me to start drawing again. My illustrations gained more vibrant colors. I began to give drawing classes to children from the community. I met Miguel, an older fisherman, and Julia, a young marine biologist. They became friends, confidants. I was building a new life, feeling valued. The memories of Roberto, Clara, and Valeria became distant. Almost a year passed. One day I received a call from Roberto. His voice was desperate. "Laura, it's Clara. She had an accident at school, fell from the bleachers, needs surgery, possible neurological damage. I need you." My world stopped. Clara. Despite everything, a child in danger. "I'm on my way." Sophia understood. "Go, Laura, but take care of yourself." I found Clara in the hospital, pale, frightened. Valeria was beside her, dissolved in tears. Roberto seemed lost. I immersed myself in caring for Clara. Sleepless nights, talks with doctors, physical therapy. She was distant, but my dedication began to break down her defenses. Her recovery was slow. Serious long-term effects were avoided thanks to the intensive follow-up I coordinated. Roberto thanked me hurriedly. Valeria, after the initial panic, went back to worrying more about her social life. The treatment costs were high. Roberto would say, "Don't worry, I'm taking care of everything. I have some investments." Valeria didn't contribute. When Clara was discharged, we returned to the apartment. The old dynamic re-established itself. Roberto at work, Valeria with her barbs, and me, the unrecognized caregiver. One day, I overheard Roberto on the phone. "Yes, dear. The money from the land sale has come through. We can finally buy that beach house." He hung up and saw me. The truth came out. The investment was the sale of a piece of land he owned with Valeria. They were saving money for a vacation home for themselves and their children, a plan I wasn't part of. The anger was cold. "You're worthless, Roberto." That night, I packed my bags. Clara came to me, her eyes welling up. "Aunt Laura, don't go." "Clara, I love you, but I can't live like this anymore. You'll understand one day." I left that apartment. I returned to Pousada Cantos de Mar. Sophia welcomed me. I resumed my work, my classes. A few months later, the summons. Roberto and Valeria were suing me, alleging moral damages, demanding compensation for my negligence. They wanted to destroy me. Sophia, Miguel, and Julia united to help me. Sophia contacted Dr. Almeida, a shrewd lawyer. Miguel organized a soiree to raise funds. Julia created an online campaign, like We Are Ball Lauras, telling my story. The community's response was strong. The legal battle was excruciating. Roberto and Valeria tried to discredit me. Donna Irene, the neighbor, testified against me. But Dr. Almeida was brilliant. The turning point was Clara's testimony. Called by the judge, the girl, then almost 14, with the brutal innocence and honesty of her age, told how she felt with her parents. She spoke of the constant fights, the emotional neglect, how Valeria criticized her and Roberto was rarely present. And then, her voice breaking, she said that when she was sick or needed help with school or simply wanted to talk, it was Aunt Laura who was there. That Aunt Laura made her feel safe and heard. Asked with whom she would feel better and more cared for, she looked at me, then at her parents, and said softly but firmly that she preferred Aunt Laura, because Aunt Laura really liked her and didn't just pretend. The impact in the courtroom was immense. Valeria cried out of anger. Roberto turned pale. Given Clara's testimony and the evidence of Roberto and Valeria's bad faith, including documents from Roberto's former secretary about the financial maneuvers, the case was dismissed. It was a bitter victory, but liberating. Pousada Cantos do Mar continued to be my home. My life was genuine. 5 years later, the afternoon sun gilded the sand. I was walking with my two treasures, Leo and Lena, 4-year-old twins, the fruits of my love with a good and gentle man whom life, in its surprising twists, had placed in my path a few years after the legal turmoil. Parenthood was shared with joy and partnership. The guest house, now also partly mine, was a vibrant home for our small family. Distracted by the twins' laughter as they ran towards the sea, I almost bumped into a young woman observing the scene with a tender smile. She turned and my heart leaped. "Clara?" The young woman stared at me, her eyes widening. "Aunt Laura?" She stood up. It was her, at 24. The hug was laden with years. "I'm on vacation for my marine biology studies," she said. I always wanted to visit this town. Your illustrations, I saw them on social media. They always seemed so you. We sat on the sand. You know, Aunt Laura, Clara began, I never really understood why Mom and Dad treated you that way. I was a child, but deep down, I always remembered you fondly. A sad smile. When I turned 16, I worked hard to get into a boarding college. Anywhere, to not have to put up with the atmosphere at home anymore. The beach house became a hell of arguments, she sighed. I should have made better use of the time we had together. I was a brat. But you were the only adult who seemed to really see me. Tears came to my eyes. Oh, Clara, I'm so sorry, Aunt Laura, for everything. I'm sorry too, dear, but that's in the past. We talked for hours. The sun began to set. Clara, I said, the guest house isn't very full. We have a spare guest room in our cottage. Why don't you spend a few days with us? Leo and Lena will love having an older cousin to play with. And we can make those pancakes. Her eyes lit up. I'd love that, Aunt Laura. I really would. As we walked along the beach, the twins running ahead of us, hand in hand with Clara, I felt a deep peace. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer hurt. Life, with its cruelties and kindnesses, had taught me that love and forgiveness, even if late, could find a way. And a chance reunion on a sunny beach was proof of that.